Welcome back, Sebastian here. So, on the back of Oliver Bearman's great performance at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix this past weekend, I thought I'd try to put that performance into context by looking at all of the substitute drivers that we've had in F1 since 2009. And I picked 2009 for a very specific reason. At the 2009 Belgian Grand Prix, Luca Badoer stepped into the Ferrari for the first time, replacing a injured Felipe Massa, who of course was injured at the in his accident at the Hungarian Grand Prix, where he was basically hit in the head by a spring. Obviously, terrible accident, and it forced him to miss the rest of the year. So it's been 15 years since the last time a Ferrari had a substitute driver. So I decided to look at all the drivers in between. So in that Grand Prix, that first Grand Prix, Badoer finished 17th. He of course had 4 seasons of experience in F1 prior to that, none of them with Ferrari, and all of them had been, I believe, in the 90s. So he was basically coming in after a decade off. So he was terribly off the pace, very, very slow, which is why he finished so poorly. He also had one more Grand Prix, the Italian Grand Prix, before being replaced by Giancarlo Fisichella for the rest of the year. That same year at the Brazilian Grand Prix, Kamui Kobayashi made his debut for Toyota, finished 9th. Of course, he was a brand new rookie and had no F1 experience prior to that, and he was replacing the injured Timo Glock, who suffered an injury during qualifying for the 2009 Japanese Grand Prix. I believe he did one more Grand Prix after that, and then I forgot to write down the board, but he also parlayed that into a 2010 seat with Sauber. I'm sure it would have been with Toyota, but unfortunately they dropped out that year. 2010, no substitute drivers for non-contractual reasons, although I do have one of those on the board. 2011 Canadian Grand Prix, Pedro de la Rosa steps in for the injured Sergio Perez, who was feeling unwell after his crash at the Monaco Grand Prix, I believe 2 weeks prior to that, or even the week prior to that. He finished 12th for Sauber. He had 5 seasons of F1 experience prior to that, and he got a seat with HRT the following year. 2012 Italian Grand Prix. This is Jerome D'Ambrosio. He finished 13th for Lotus. He'd had one previous year of experience in Formula One, and that I believe was with Marussia the previous year, 2011, and he was replacing Romain Grosjean, who of course was serving a 1-race ban for his crazy accident that he caused at the prior race, the 2012 Belgian Grand Prix. And many Alonso fans will still tell you that crash ruined his title chances that year, and I guess it's kind of hard to argue with that. 2013 U.S. Grand Prix. This time it's Heikki Kovalainen. He finished 14th for Lotus. He had 6 seasons of F1 experience prior to that. He also did the final Grand Prix, I believe the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, and he was replacing the Kimi Räikkönen, who basically got surgery to fix some kind of back issue that had basically flared up at the Singapore Grand Prix prior to that. 2014 Belgian Grand Prix. This is the one contractual one, and this was Andre Lauderer. Unfortunately, DNF'd. Only completed 1 lap for Caterham before basically having to come into the pits. That was his only Grand Prix start. He had never done a Grand Prix before or after that, and he was replacing Kamui Kobayashi, who for some, I tried finding out the answer on Wikipedia, but basically for contractual reasons, Kobayashi didn't do the race, and so Lauderer stepped in for that one time. Notably, he also outqualified his teammate Marcus Ericsson, so definitely showed that he did have some potential there. So I would have been very curious to see what he could have done with a full-time seat. 2015 Australian Grand Prix. This is Kevin Magnussen. He unfortunately qualified and then didn't start the race for McLaren because this was the very first race of the McLaren-Honda partnership. And yeah, the car was so bad that it forced that he couldn't even start the first Grand Prix. But yeah, did qualifying anyway. And yeah, he had done, of course, had 1 season of experience prior to that with McLaren the previous year. And he was able to get a future F1 seat with Renault in 2016. That Grand Prix, he was replacing Fernando Alonso, who had an accident during winter testing. And of course, the rumor is that while we've never officially heard this, the rumor is that he got electrocuted by his car, woke up in the hospital, and then thought he was a kid or something, thought he was still karting. So yeah, kind of a crazy story there. I don't think we've ever actually heard officially what happened there, but yeah, that's the rumor basically, or kind of that's what's said online often. 2016 Bahrain Grand Prix again. Alonso, after his basically recovering from his accident from the 2016 Australian Grand Prix, where he basically did that barrel roll into the gravel trap, he was replaced by Stoffel Vandoorne, and he finished in 10th. So really good result. The first driver that we've had so far who finished in the points. Of course, Kobayashi finished 9th for Toyota, which is pretty impressive, but they didn't give points to 9th place or 10th place back then. For Vandoorne, he was a complete rookie, and of course it was a really good result. So after Jenson Button retired, they gave him the 2017 seat alongside Alonso. That because probably in part due to that performance. 2017 Australian Grand Prix, Antonio Giovinazzi making his F1 debut for Sauber, finished 12th. He was replacing Pascal Wehrlein, who was recovering from an injury that he suffered during the Race of Champions, which is basically kind of like this kind of a sporting gala where they drive all sorts of kind of different cars, like rally cars, that kind of thing. And each country basically has 2 drivers, and they do like a kind of a race. But yeah, Wehrlein unfortunately got injured in that. But of course, he was able to come back. But for Giovinazzi, he later got the Alfa Romeo seat in 2019. Now, that same year, we actually had three substitute drivers. Next, we had Monaco Grand Prix. We had Jenson Button replacing Fernando Alonso, who had been replaced for the 3rd time in 3 years. This time, though, it was not because of an accident. It was because he decided to go off and do the Indy 500. I guess somehow he had negotiated this into his contract. He was allowed to do Indy, so he missed the Monaco Grand Prix where he was replaced by Button. Button, unfortunately, DNF'd, got involved in that. I guess that somewhat infamous crash with Wehrlein, where at the harbor, not the harbor, basically, I don't remember what the corner is called. Basically, it's the corner right before the tunnel, where he basically made wheel-to-wheel contact with Wehrlein, and it basically sent Wehrlein's car onto its side. Of course, and then DNF'd, but for Button, 17 years of experience, that was his final Grand Prix, and he was basically just coming in to replace Alonso that one time. Hungarian Grand Prix, we had Paul di Resta coming in to replace the ill Felipe Massa, who was suffering some kind of illness that weekend. For di Resta, he DNF'd, and of course that was with Williams, and he had 3 years of experience prior to that. The last one I believe was 2013, so coming in after 4 years off. I believe he was with the Sky team at that point. Coming in doing Sky, and then being told, yes, you're going to drive in the Grand Prix that weekend. Definitely a big shift there. Then we have 2 years where there was no substitute drivers, 2018, 2019, after having a driver at least one every year from 2011 to 2017. So that's a big hectic. But yes, 2020 of course was the start of kind of the COVID era, and we had quite a few COVID substitutions at this time. So first, British Grand Prix, the reason I chose Nico Hulkenberg for the thumbnail, he shows up in here 3 times. So first, Nico Hulkenberg, the 2020 British Grand Prix, unfortunately did not start the race, qualified I believe made Q2, and that is of course with Racing Point, 9 years of experience prior to that, and he was replacing Sergio Perez, who got COVID. He also did the 70th anniversary Grand Prix, where he notably qualified 3rd on the grid, out-qualified Stroll. Of course, a track that he knew very well, and the one that he'd done the previous weekend, but still a very good performance by Hulkenberg at the British Grand Prix weekend. Then, because it was 2 weekends back to back, remember? And then the same season at the Eiffel Grand Prix, replacing Stroll, who again got COVID, he finished 8th for Racing Point. And this time, I believe, there was no free practice 3, I believe, got cancelled. So Hulkenberg had to go into qualifying with no practice. Unfortunately for him, qualified 20th on the grid. But the Racing Point, pretty decent car, and Hulkenberg, a pretty decent driver, was able to make his way back to 8th on the grid. Then, second to last, penultimate round of the season, the Secure Grand Prix, we had 2 substitute drivers. So four different substitutions in total that year. So first we have Pietro Fittipaldi for Haas, replacing Romain Grosjean after, of course, his horror accident at the Bahrain Grand Prix the week prior. He finished 17th. He had no F1 experience prior to that, and he only did one more Grand Prix, the season finale in Abu Dhabi. Also debuting that week at that Grand Prix was Jack Aitken. Finished 16th for Williams. He had had no F1 experience prior to that, and yeah, as of the recording of this video, no more Grand Prix to his name. He was replacing George Russell at Williams, but Russell, of course, was himself was replacing Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes because Hamilton come down with COVID. 2021 Dutch Grand Prix, we have Robert Kubica coming in to substitute for Kimi Räikkönen because of COVID. Finished 18th, and 15th for Alfa Romeo. Of course, for Kubica, 5 years of F1 experience prior to that. Most recently in 2019 with Williams, and he did one more Grand Prix, the Italian Grand Prix, while Räikkönen was recovering. 2022 Bahrain Grand Prix, Nico Hülkenberg came in to replace Sebastian Vettel, who was suffering from COVID. Finished 17th for Aston Martin, and did one more Grand Prix, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Of course, I think those two performances probably helped to convince Gunther Steiner and Gene Haas to assign him for the 2023 Haas seat. And then also that year, we had Nick De Vries, the Italian Grand Prix, finished 9th for Williams on his F1 debut. Of course, replacing Alexander Albon, who got appendicitis. Pretty impressive performance, especially considering it was a Williams, and he was able to get the 2023 AlphaTauri seat before, of course, being replaced 11 races into the season. 2023 Dutch Grand Prix, we had Liam Lawson. Finished 13th. I forgot to read the TH there, but oh well. Of course, at AlphaTauri, that was his F1 debut, no F1 experience prior to that. He would go on to do 4 more Grand Prix, while Daniel Ricciardo, who basically had a metacarpal injury suffered during free practice, recovered from that injury. And then, of course, we have for Lawson as of right now, no further F1 seat, but I think there is hope that he may end up with an AlphaTauri seat in not AlphaTauri at this point, a Racing Bull seat in 2025. Then 2024, of course, most recently, Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, Oliver Bearman, driving for Ferrari, he finishes 7th. Debutant, no prior F1 experience, and of course replacing Carlos Sainz, who had appendicitis. So a bit funny that in 3 years we have 2 drivers come down with appendicitis on Grand Prix weekend, after not having any in the previous 10 to 15 years, or 13 years basically. So yeah, that's definitely an interesting one. I think in terms of most impressive performances, I think it's hard to say. Obviously, Bearman has the highest finish of all the drivers on the board, but I do think he was also in the best car. I think the Ferrari this year is the best car of these available, but there are also some pretty good cars here. The 2012 and 2013 Lotuses were pretty strong, and of course, both drivers finished outside the points on both occasions despite having F1 experience. Just taking a look at other good cars, the Ferrari was an okay car. That Belgian Grand Prix, Kimi Räikkönen actually won, but of course Bidoer had been out of F1 for basically a decade at that point, so that's understandable. I think the Toyota was also a good car that year, but again, Kobayashi finished 9th. I just want to think. The Racing Point. The Racing Point was a pretty good car in 2020. Probably arguably second or third best car that year. Hülkenberg getting points the second time out in Eiffel, plus second race, the 70th anniversary Grand Prix as well. But I do think in terms of most impressive performance, I think Bearman's performance very, very impressive. Stoffel Van Dorn's as well, 10th place on debut with McLaren, which was a so-so car in 2016. I think, what else? I do think that the Hülkenberg performance, while he didn't start the race for the British Grand Prix, I think his efforts both in the 70th anniversary Grand Prix and in the Eiffel Grand Prix were very impressive as well, coming in on such short notice. Of course, De Vries very impressive, but I do think flattered a bit by how strong the Williams was at Monza, and the fact that it was not a particularly technical circuit, one of the easier circuits if you've ever played the F1 game, whereas, for example, Saudi Arabia, one of the toughest one. The other thing, I know people have been comparing the two a lot online, but I think the other big differentiator is that Bearman's 18 years of age, while for De Vries, I believe he was 27, 28, when he drove for Williams. So almost a decade's experience difference, And just in terms of single-seater difference, De Vries had done 3 years of Formula E, he'd done 3 years of Formula 2, plus whatever prior to that, whereas for Behrman, this is his 5th year in single-seaters total. So yeah, very big difference experience-wise there. But I do think if I had to kind of say overall, I do think Behrman's, and then for Lawson, while that Dutch Grand Prix was no points obviously, but given how tricky the conditions were, and the body of work that I put in at the other 4 Grand Prix, which I do think were quite impressive, including points in Singapore, I do think that probably the 5 most impressive performances, I would say, are Behrman, Lawson, Hulkenberg, Van Dorn, and I would also, unfortunately, for better or worse, have to put De Vries into that top 5 most impressive performances of the reserve drivers that we've had. I guess you could also throw Kobayashi's 9th place for Toyota into the mix. Unfortunately, I haven't watched that Grand Prix, so I don't really know. But yeah, and I was a bit young then. But still, I do think based on the context of all the other performances that we've had, very, very good showing by Behrman, and I'm really excited to see what's next for him, and I really hope he gets a seat in the coming years. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and yeah, I'll be back again probably tomorrow with my preview for the Cape Town E-Prix, not Cape Town, Sao Paulo E-Prix. Goodbye.